What's up, guys? It's your boy Justin back with another fantasy book review. Today we're reviewing Castle of Wizardry, which is the fourth book in the Belgariad by David Eddings. This is the second to last book of this series, right? This was originally published in 1984. So the book pretty much... I forgot to mention this is published by Del Rey and Ballantine. So the book, sorry, I still have my cough. I finished this book like a few days ago. I was hoping my cold would be gone by now, but it's still lingering. So I'm like, oh well, I might as well do it today. So yeah, the book takes place right after the events of the first book. Sorry, the last book. Sorry. Where our characters had to flee, what was it called, Rakgoska, right? After the deadly battle between Belgariad and the evil sorcerer guy. I forget his Kuchik. That was his name, Kuchik. Sorry, the guy has a weird name, Kuchik, right? Yeah. So like our characters had to flee, right? And there was a cool battle where the Algarians, which are like the same people as Heltar, right? They're like they're like tribal, like they're basically Mongols / Dothraki. Sorry, if you ever watched Game of Thrones, right? Yeah. So there was a cool battle between them. After that, our characters go to Riva, where it's finally revealed that Gariad is actually the Riva King reborn. He becomes the new king of Riva. Right, and and they even joined the Orb of Aldar with the magic sword, right? And like he's announced to be the Overlord of the West, right? Because the new Rivet King, right? Where also we get reintroduced to Yeldorin, the Asturian bowman, right? Who we were introduced to in the second book, Queen of Sorcery. Nice to see him back, right? It turns out after since we left him, he ran away. He ran off with the membrate noble girl and was declared an outlaw. Right? So, Yeldorin had like a bunch of adventures, right? So yeah, like a good chunk of the book is Gariad, also known as Belgariad because he's a sorcerer, right? Having to deal with being a king and finding out from the voice in his head, right, the entity, right, that it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if all the armies of the West fight with all the armies of the East, which is going to happen, right? What the Alord Kings was planning, right? Since the Angarax, all the armies of the East are like planning on invading the West, right? Since Torak is awoken, the evil god king Torak is back, right? It doesn't matter if the armies fight. The only thing that will like stop the war is if Belgariad fights Torak, and he needs the magic sword. So Belgariad decides to leave the kingdom, right, with Belgariad, who it was still at that point was still unclear whether or not he could still use his magic, and Silk, right? They brought Silk with him because, he's a spy, he's a good tracker. Not tracker, good scout, right? He's a good guide. So, like, while they sneaked off to go to wherever Torak is at, which I forget where he's at. He's somewhere in the east, right? Let me check. He's somewhere. He's somewhere. I think he's here. I think he's not there. Wherever, he's somewhere in the east. That's where they need to go, right? They start all the way from here, and they have to go all the way over here. Right? Somewhere around here. So somewhere in the east is where Torak is. Sorry, it's been a while since like I said, it's been a few days, right? While that's going on, Cianedra is now the queen of Riva, right? And she has to go around the kingdoms of the west, raise an army behind her to fight the Angarax, because Belgarian's gone. Because Belgarian had to go to the east, right? There's nobody to raise the army, so the Aelorn kings needs a unifying symbol. So Cianedra volunteered herself, which is a very funny scene where she goes to armorer, a blacksmith with Durnick to get her armor made, right? And he's like, the guy's like, oh, I don't make armor for women. Get out of here. He's like, but I need it though. Just think of it like as a costume. It's like a costume, and like the dude makes the armor for her, right? And she complains like, oh, I need like this, right? She's like, what? Like, this armor makes me look like the flat plate armor makes the flat breastplate makes me look like a little boy. So I need the big cups. Right? There's the funny thing where she's complaining that she needs her breastplate to have boobs, so like people know she's a woman, right? That was like. Yeah, that was a funny scene. There was also a funny scene where we find out that Belgarov's wife, who is Polgara's mother, Poldra, was actually a wolf who learned sorcery and became a woman, so she could be with Belgarov, right? And Belgarian's Garian's grandfather. That's grandfather. That's bestiality. It's like, oh my! I was gonna quote Clerks too, but then I forgot the quote. Basically, he accuses his grandfather of bestiality. It's like she was a human at that point. Relax. So that was funny. But overall, I'm just going with my likes and dislikes. The writing was good. The humor was great as usual, and this book was actually this was like 360 pages. This was the longest so far, because they were usually between 200 to 300. This was almost 400 pages, right? So that was good, right? But now I'm going to go with my dislikes for the book, right? Not nearly as much action in this book as there were in the last two books. In the first one, there wasn't a lot of action either, but that's usually the case when you start off a fantasy book series, right? But yeah, there wasn't a lot of action in this book at all, next to none, really, honestly. And I get that this book was pretty much like, it wasn't exactly filler, but it was more like, we need to set up events for the, for the finale, right? So there was that. I didn't like that a lot of Sinedra's speeches were pretty much, you only saw the beginning or the end of, until like the final speech at the end, which was her winning over the Tornadran army, right? Which I'm not gonna spoil how she does it, but like her speech and her like little like scheme she came up with was pretty good. Though that was kind of a crappy climax for like a fantasy book. Oh, the climax for the book is pretty much her getting the army that she needs to fight the East, right? So that was a little lame. Would have been nice, because the last two climaxes, right? The last, Queen of Sorcery, you had a climax. The climax there was Garion being kidnapped by the Serpent Queen, right, and getting rescued by Polgara and Barak in his bear form, right, and you had Salmistra summon the Isra, the snake god, and you had Polgara turning her into a snake. That was good, which they mentioned them in this book, by the way. Also, there was two of the peasant characters from Queen of Sorcery is in this book too. Because seeing Adra overhears two serfs complaining about taxes, not having anything to eat. So she gives them food so they can join her army, right? Because at that point she was trying to use her plan to get the Asturians to fight for her, right? Was appeal for people's patriotism, but because of how bad how mistreated the serfs are with the taxes, they don't really give a shit about about patriotism, right? They just want they just want food to eat, right? So that was a little depressing. But yeah, even in the climax of Magician's Gambit, you had a battle between two powerful sorcerers. Right here, it's compared to those two books, this was the climax was kind of weak. But then again, I understand that this book was pretty much, like I said, it was pretty much a setup for the final book, right? Enchanter's Endgame, which I have here. Here we go. Here's Enchanter's Endgame, book 5. Right. So we're gonna review that in 2 weeks. Not 2 weeks, a week or two. Oh, I was right. They need to go to Chicho Mishrak. Okay. So yeah, if I were to give this book a rating, I would say it's not as good as last couple. This is probably the weakest book so far, but of the series, but it's still good, and I would give it 7 out of 10. It's still a great book, but it's not as good as the previous books in the series. So yeah, that's it for this review, guys.